Good morning. In the last session, we looked at the biography of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, a 18th, 19th century poet belonging to the Romantic age. Coleridge was basically a contemporary of William Wordsworth. Coleridge's poem Christabel, Part 1, is prescribed for the students of BA Part 2, English Literature, in Paper 1. We will look at the explanation, summary, and analysis of the poem Christabel, Part 1. First, the introduction to the poem. The poem entitled Christabel consists of two parts. The first part of this poem was composed in 1797 and it is made up of 337 lines. The poem was to be published according to the poet's intention in the second edition of the Lyrical Ballads in 1800. Further, it was to be a long one divided into 5 parts. But after 1799, the poet suffered from a great barrenness with regard to poetic composition. The result was that the poem, as upon it as an unfinished poem, and so did his publishers. It was later published together with Kubla Khan by Murray in 1816 on the recommendation of George Gordon Byron, the poet. According to Paul Harvey, its first part was composed at Stowe in Somerset in 1797, while the second part at Keswick in Cumberland in 1800, after Coleridge's return from Germany. The story of Christabel concerns a central female character of the same name and her encounter with a stranger called Geraldine, who claims to have been abducted from her home by a band of rough men. Christabel goes into the woods to pray by the large oak tree, where she hears a strange noise. Upon looking behind the tree, she finds Geraldine, who says that she had been abducted from her home by men on horseback. Christabel pities her and takes her home with her. Supernatural signs, a dog barking, a mysterious flame on a dead fire, Geraldine being unable to cross an iron gate, denial of prayer, etc., seem to indicate that all is not well. They spend the night together, but while Geraldine undresses, she shows a terrible but undefined mark. Behold, her bosom and half her side, a sight to dream of, not to tell, and she is to sleep by Christabel. These are lines 246 to 48 of the text. Her father, Sir Leoline, becomes enchanted with Geraldine, ordering a grand procession to announce her rescue. The unfinished poem ends here. Plot summary and analysis. The summary of Part 1. The poem begins with Christabel going into the woods at night alone. She has left the house of her father, Sir Leoline, who is a baron. A baron is a status of somebody who belongs to the aristocratic class. It is a full moon in April and a chilly night. She has had dreams of the night she's betrothed to, means she's engaged to marry, and is out in the woods to pray for her fiancé's well-being as he is far away. While kneeling beneath an oak tree, she hears a moan and investigates. She sees a lady who appears bright and radiant, dressed in a white silk robe. Christabel has found a beautiful woman with bare feet, bare arms, and gems in her hair on the opposite side of the tree. The woman explains that her name is Geraldine and that she has been kidnapped by 5 warriors. She gives a detailed account of her abduction, of being tied on a white horse and riding at a furious pace, means with great speed, through the night for she knew not how long. The tallest of the 5 warriors left her beneath the oak tree where Christabel finds her. According to Geraldine, the warrior swore they would return with haste. She asks Christabel for help. Christabel not only offers her help, but she also offers to the help of her father, Sir Leoline, who will ensure Geraldine's safe return to her noble father's hall. Christabel then leads Geraldine into the castle, telling her that the household is asleep and that Sir Leoline is in poor health and may not be awakened. So she offers to let Geraldine share her bed with her. Christabel and Geraldine cross the moat. A moat is a canal built around a castle to keep it safe. आपने पुराने ज़माने के जो गढ़ या किले होते थे उनकी बाहरी दीवार के बाहर की तरफ एक पानी की नहर देखी होगी चारों तरफ, और अधिकतर उस नहर में घड़ियाल या मगरमच्छ छोड़ दिए जाते थे, और उस नहर का काम होता था कि वो उस किले या गढ़ के भीतर किसी भी अनजान व्यक्ति को प्रवेश करने में मुश्किल आती। उसे इंग्लिश में मोट कहते हैं। And Christabel opens a small door within the iron gate. At this point, Geraldine sinks down on the ground as though she is in pain, and Christabel carries her across the threshold. As soon as she is beyond the threshold, Geraldine stands up again as though the pain has passed. They walk by an old dog that does not wake but makes an angry noise in its sleep. They pass several torches that are dying until Geraldine passes. As she passes, the torches flare up. They quickly and quietly move past the Baron's room and reach Christabel's chamber. यहाँ पर टॉर्चेस से मतलब वो टॉर्च नहीं जो हम समझते हैं, ये मशाल के लिए यूज़ किया गया है। आप जानते हैं कि मशाल लकड़ी की बनी हुई होती है जिसके ऊपरी सिरे पर केरोसिन या पेट्रोल में या किसी ईंधन में डूबा हुआ कपड़ा बांधा हुआ होता है। आप उसको प्रज्वलित कर दीजिएगा और उससे रोशनी हुआ करती थी रात के अंधेरे में। पुराने ज़माने में मशाल ही काम आती थी। तो वो टॉर्चेस पूरे घर के कॉरिडोर्स में, बरामदों में लगे हुए हैं, यानी कि मशालें लगी हुई हैं। Christabel trimmed the lamp and made it bright. At this, Geraldine crumbles to the floor. So Christabel offers her wine made of wildflowers by Christabel's mother. As they speak, Christabel reveals that her mother died at the time of her birth. However, Christabel says she has heard from a friar. Friar can be understood as a wandering priest, साधु जो इधर से उधर भटकते हैं या एक मठ मंदिर से दूसरे मठ मंदिर जाते हैं. That Christabel's mother on her deathbed promised she would hear the castle bells strike 12 o'clock on her daughter's wedding day. Then, in a changed voice, Geraldine declares, "Of wandering mother, I have power to bid thee flee." Christabel wonders at her words. She observes her, she means Christabel, notices her means Geraldine's unsettled eye and asks herself if Geraldine is able to see spirits of the dead. In the next stanza, Geraldine's words are stronger as she cries, "Off, woman, off, this hour is mine." Christabel mistakenly interprets this behavior and these words to be the result of Geraldine's supposed kidnapping. Geraldine stands, drinks the wildflower wine, and suggests that Christabel unrobe while she prays. Christabel obeys Geraldine, undressing and reclining in the bed. She props herself up to look at Geraldine, who, disrobing, unbound the cincture from beneath her breast. Cincture means belt. Her silken robe and inner vest dropped to her feet, a sight to dream of, not to tell. She joins Christabel in the bed, takes Christabel into her arms, and casts a spell to control what Christabel can say. Explanation of Christabel, Part 1, stanzas 1 to 4. Now, the next few lines are in bold. This is the text of the poem, my dear students. I will not read it. I will go directly to the explanation. You can look at the text for yourself. Let us try and understand what these lines mean. We can tell that something strange is going on here. Owls are certainly known for their late night shenanigans, but they usually keep it down enough that the roosters can sleep through it. Shenanigans means secret or dishonest activity. Tonight, however, the owls are calling so loudly that the roosters, which means cocks, wake up and start to crow. To wit, to woo is a more elegant way to mimic an owl, though it does not leave much room for who jokes. Line 3 may seem like a simple onomatopoeia, means repetition of sound, but it can actually tell us quite a bit about the setting of the poem. There are a lot more owl species than there are licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. But only one actually makes the distinctive to-wit to-who sound, and that is the tawny owl. Tawny owls are the most common owl species in Britain, though not found at all in Ireland or the smaller British islands. This tells us that the story takes place on the main island of Britain. For more, you can check out the setting. It also tells us that it is likely to be during the early spring mating season, since it takes both a male and female tawny owl to make the full call. You see, the female provides the to-wit and the male the to-who. The calls of the owls are also believed to be bad omens, so Coleridge is essentially giving us the 18th century equivalent of a content warning disclaimer. Line 6 lets us know who the castle in line 1 belongs to. Sir Llewellyn, a wealthy baron. Apparently, the baron has a mastiff, which is a very large breed of dog. Though modern audiences might be more familiar with the English mastiff, Coleridge is likely talking about a Tibetan mastiff, since this was a very popular breed in Victorian England when Coleridge was writing. Mastiffs make great guard dogs, though this one seems to have a bad habit of howling in the middle of the night. The end of line 7 can make a modern reader snicker, but here the word bitch simply describes a dog of the female sex, one likely to have given birth to a litter of puppies at some point in her doggy life. It is still common British terminology, while Americans are more likely to view the word as a slur. Slur means as an abuse. हिंदी में जिसको गाली कहते हैं. The fact that the bitch is toothless, means without teeth, is a bit strange though. This could mean that the dog is very, very old and is in need of some doggy dentures, or it could be a symbol used to indicate that the dog is mostly harmless. Toothless or not, the amount of slobber a toothless dog of that size could produce would still keep us in check. Without teeth, the dog apparently had to give up a job in security and take on a job as the timekeeper for the castle. Classic chiming clocks ring out a different sort of short chime for each quarter hour. Quarter hour means 15 minutes. आप जानते हैं कि 1 घंटे में 15-15 मिनट के 4 सेक्शंस होते हैं. And they run through the entire chime once before ringing out the number that corresponds with the hour. The dog does not have much of a singing voice, so she just lets out a single howl for each quarter hour and then 12 more to let us know that it is precisely midnight or the witching hour when this takes place. That is one talented pooch. Pooch means dog. Line 11 could be straight out of a modern pop song if the language were not quite so archaic. Archaic means old. Ever and I by Shine and Shar just means forever and ever, whether it rains or it is sunny. Clearly, Colridge wanted us to remember what time it is because he is telling us yet again that it is midnight. 12 howls for the hour plus 1 howl for each quarter hour equals 16 howls. That is a lot of howls. Howls means the cry of the dog here. The stanza moves along fairly smoothly until this last line, which makes us do a bit of a double take. The poem has just been talking about dogs and clocks and reminding us of the time. But suddenly, it introduces the idea of a shroud. Shroud in English means हिंदी में जिसको हम कफन कहते हैं, वो कपड़ा जो एक मृत शरीर पर ढकने के लिए काम में लिया जाता है वो कफन कहलाता है. It leaves a lot of questions. Who is the lady in question? And why would some people say that the dog is seeing her ghost? Midnight is certainly a good time for a ghost to be hanging around. But why is she here now? We have to keep reading to find answers to these questions. If it seems to you that the entire second stanza is basically just talking about the weather, you are not alone. It is technically spring, but it is so early in the spring that the cold of winter is still hanging around. It is chilly, but it isn't really that dark, even at midnight, because there is a full moon. The important thing is not that what this stanza is stating literally, but what it implies or hints at. The full moon is probably the most important part because it has the biggest creepy factor, and Coleridge is trying to set up a creepy atmosphere. You can again check settings. Creepy means eerie, थोड़ा सा भयावह जिसमें आपको डर लगे, अजीब सा लगे. We have moved beyond the dog and the clocks and have discovered that Christabel is also out and about at this late hour. So, who might this Christabel be? There are several hints sprinkled through the stanza that answer this question. First, her father, mentioned in line 24, who loves her very much, is likely Sir Leoline, the wealthy baron mentioned back in the first stanza. Since he is the only man mentioned so far, it is a good bet that this is Christabel's dad. Other hints just reinforce our guess that Christabel is the baron's daughter. For example, the speaker asks why she would be a whole furlong. A furlong is 220 yards. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So 220 into 3 will be 660 feet. So about 220. A yard can be considered to be as a equal to a meter roughly away from the castle gate at this hour. So it is safe to assume that she should actually be inside that castle with Sir Leoline, not somewhere else. On our last hint is in line 28, when we learn that Christabel is engaged to a knight. Knights held important positions in feudal society and would often be titled members of the aristocracy. Even if a knight didn't already have a title, he would likely marry into a wealthy family and acquire one through marriage. Since Christabel's fiancé is a knight, it is safe to assume that Christabel herself would be the daughter of someone important. Christabel has been woken up by nightmares about her fiancé being in danger. So she has decided to get up in the middle of the night to go pray for his well being in the woods. Yes, that seems perfectly normal, right? Vocabulary of alert. The word weal in line 30 refers to the fiancé's welfare. It wouldn't be unreasonable to wonder why this young woman is out in the woods at midnight to pray. Wouldn't it be easier to visit the chapel in the morning? A chapel is a small church, usually built in a house or a home. After a good night's sleep and a nice breakfast? Let us hope there is a good reason for all the trouble. Since it is winter, there are no leaves on the trees. However, there are clumps of green from the moss and the mistletoe. मॉस हिंदी में जिसको हम काई कहते हैं, पेड़ों के नीचे जो हरी हरी उगाती है. मिसलटो एक तरह का पौधा होता है. The oak tree is sacred to pagan religions, especially the Druids as well as to Christians. Mistletoe is also highly symbolic. Druids were specially fond of the plant and considered it to be a direct link to their deities. Deities means gods. Druids का meaning मैं अभी समझाती हूँ. In this case, the oak tree with the mistletoe creates an irresistible combo. Combo means combination platter of godliness that calls Christabel out into the cold to pray.